To recap the previous session, we looked at the emergency procedures. In today's session, we will look at the law and responsibilities. The legal responsibility to manage asbestos depends on whether you have the responsibility for maintenance and repair of the building. You would be classified as a duty holder if you own, occupy, manage, or have responsibilities for non-domestic premises. You would also be classified as a duty holder if you are responsible through a contract or tenancy agreement. There is no formal contract or agreement, but you have control of the agreement. In a multi-occupied building, you are the owner and have taken responsibility for maintenance and repairs for the whole building. Employers have a responsibility under the Health and Safety at Work Act Order 1978. Which requires them to maintain a safe workplace, provide information, supervision, instruction, and training. Employers also have responsibilities under the Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulations 2000, which requires them to assess the hazards and risks to employees and others affected by their work. It also requires them to ensure that employees are told of the risks involved in their work and the precautions required to control the risks. Employers must also regularly review assessments to ensure they remain relevant. Regulation 10 of the Control of Asbestos Regulations NI state that every employer shall ensure that the adequate information, instruction and training is given to those of his employees who are liable to be exposed to asbestos or who supervise such employees so that they are aware of the properties of asbestos and its effects on health, including its interaction with smoking. Every employer must ensure adequate information, instruction and training is given to those of his employees regarding the types of products or materials likely to contain asbestos, the operations which result in asbestos exposure and the importance of preventative controls to minimize exposure, safe work practices, control measures and protective equipment, and finally, the purpose, choice, limitations, proper use and maintenance of respiratory protective equipment. Under the Health and Safety at Work Order NI 1978, employees must take reasonable care for the health and safety of themselves and others who may be affected by their acts or omissions. They must also cooperate with their employer to enable them to comply with their statutory requirements. The Construction, Design and Management Regulations Northern Ireland 2016 are one of the main pieces of health and safety legislation within the construction sector. The CDM regulations apply general principles which relate to asbestos, including sensibly plan the work so the risks involved are managed from start to finish. Have the right people for the right job at the right time. Cooperate and coordinate your work with others. Have the right information about the risks and how they are being managed. 1931 Asbestos Industries Regulation in the UK. 1969 Asbestos Regulations in the UK. 1983 Asbestos Licensing Regulations. 1985 Prohibition Regulations. The importation, supply and use of all blue and brown asbestos and the use of white asbestos for insulation was prohibited. 1987 Control of Asbestos at Work Regulations. 1992 Asbestos Prohibition Regulations, which banned all other amphiboles. 1999 Asbestos Prohibition Amendment Regulations. 2002 Control of Asbestos at Work Regulations. 2006 Control of Asbestos at Work Regulations. And finally, 2012 the Control of Asbestos Regulations NI. The HSG 210 Asbestos Essentials uses a series of task sheets with over 100 full-colour photos and illustrations to demonstrate good practice for non-licensed tasks, and covers the action needed to reduce exposure to an adequate level. Please see the homepage for a link to the Asbestos Essentials task sheets. The HSG 264. There is a free-to-download web-friendly version on the HSE website or at most good bookstores. In this publication is the methodology to use in carrying out surveys and how to report and present results. The L127, the management of asbestos in non-domestic premises, and the L143, work with materials containing asbestos, have been consolidated into this single revised ACOP. This publication contains the Control of Asbestos Regulations 2012, the Approved Code of Practice, and guidance text for employers about work which disturbs or is likely to disturb asbestos, asbestos sampling and laboratory analysis. There is a free-to-download web-friendly version on the HSE website. The HSG 247. There is a free-to-download web-friendly version of the HSG 247 on the HSE website and most good bookshops. It is aimed at businesses holding a license to work with asbestos, either repairing or removing asbestos-containing materials, supervising such work, holding an ancillary license or providing training on asbestos. The guidance is split into 8 chapters, covering different aspects of licensed work with AMCs. It provides an overview of asbestos and its health effects, the law, and how to work safely with asbestos. This concludes our Concara Training Asbestos Awareness course. You will now be asked to complete a short multiple-choice test before receiving your certificate.
Created using Powtoon.